Hello everyone, it's Sarah here, back once again with another exciting review and breakdown for Alien Earth. Today we are covering episode 5 titled In Space, No One Can Hear You Scream, the famous tagline from the original film. Quickly though, before we begin, please like, share and subscribe to the channel, and that's it, let's jump right in. Enjoy. Last week we left off with Wendy befriending a xenomorph, like a little girl getting her first puppy. However, this week we're getting a flashback episode. Yay! Honestly, just a nitpick, but this is a tired trope in these mystery box style shows that often kills the memento. Yes, we wanted to be surprised when the Lost Boys first discovered the alien species in the lab and see all the carnage. But I still believe they should have started the show with this episode and just done the story in chronological order, or at very least show the flashback scenes through Morrow telling the story to Slightly or something. But gripes aside, the episode is more alien than ever, as we spend some time with the crew as they study the various creatures while some of them get loose. Again, some of the characters don't really stand out in the same way Morrow does, so I've already forgotten some of their names if I learned them at all. Most of them can just be identified by a character trait: the addict, the woman with something to prove, the doctor lady, the smart engineer and the dumb engineer, oh and Teng, the creepy android dude. Or at least I think he's synthetic. Otherwise he's even weirder than I thought. Well, suffice it to say, if you've seen the first episode of the show, you kind of know how this all ends, with Morrow sealing himself into the safety pod before the ship crashes into Prodigy City. The creature parts are fun, but a lot of the dialogue throughout the episode feels stiff and trying too hard by constantly info dumping exposition. It makes for an off-putting pace, and there are moments when the crew is just standing around, arguing about company policies while there's alien threats loose. Like they forgot about it or aren't really taking it seriously. And at this point, at least 3 crew members have died. They also shoehorn in a romance subplot for a quick sex scene that doesn't really affect the plot in any way. So T&A, I guess? Don't get me wrong, I'm all for a good hot scene if it fits the narrative, but just like in our review for Honey Don't, this just seemed pointless. I'd have to say this week the episode was both an upgrade in some aspects but also a downgrade when it comes to an overall story of the series so far. I would definitely put last week's episode and episode 3 above this one in the ranking. Okay, so get ready, spoilers are inbound. I'll give you a moment to skip to the timestamp on screen if you want to avoid them. Still here? Alright, let's get to it. So as I mentioned before, this week is a flashback episode, so it's set 17 days ago, shortly before the Maginot crashes into Earth. Morrow is woken up from his cryo sleep to find out that there was a fire in the lab, and some specimens got out, namely the facehuggers. The captain and some technician both got one attached to them, and when the addict tried to perform surgery to remove the alien, it bled out acid and killed the poor captain. So they decide, let's just put the other guy in the freezer and figure this shit out when they get back home. Meanwhile, there's now strife between Morrow and Zaveri, the lady with something to prove, as she is technically the next in rank to command the ship, but Morrow, being the head of security, thinks he should take command because he's got the company's best interests at heart, and because he needs to figure out who possibly sabotaged them. This idiot security guard in training also informs him that Zaveri and Cap are banging it out all over the ship, and he's been recording them for the last 8 months, and so she's super sad the captain is dead. Morrow uses the security station to re-watch all the footage, and of course while we get glimpses of things breaking and the escape of a creature, we also get a few scenes of Zaveri and Cap doing their thing. Again, it just feels kind of pointless. Anyway, he sees how Cap and Bronsky are taken down by the facehuggers, and then goes to the spot to investigate, especially the giant acid-burned hole that has melted down through several decks. Luckily it stopped just before breaching the outer hull, or none of them would be having this conversation now. However, neither the footage nor any physical evidence seems to get him any closer to a suspect. All he has is a blurry person in a jumpsuit with their back turned to the camera the whole time. Morrow visits the engineers and requests some blueprints of the ship. The culprit, whomever they are, is not using the halls to get around, so there must be ducks or something right. Meanwhile, Zavari goes to Us Mother and contacts the company for her next assignment, but all they care about is the cargo status and that she ensures they reclaim the assets and bring those suckers home. If she agrees to it, she can be captain. Jumping back to Morrow, he's travelling down an even further flashback memory of the day he left Earth on the mission, leaving behind his daughter, who is probably an adult now, given that decades have passed while he was away. He also seems to be the owner of that cat we saw in episode 2. Poor kitty, Morrow didn't deserve you. But the flashback does serve a purpose in humanising Morrow a bit more. That he did all of this to ensure his family would never have to sign their life away to some company, which is why he's so fiercely loyal to getting the job done. Still a cold-hearted son of a bitch though. As Zaviri, Morrow and the chief engineer meet up to assess the damage and come up with a plan to fix it, an alarm goes off for the cryo chambers. Well, it looks like the baby chestburster hatched its way out of Bronsky and is running around the ship somewhere. Now this perplexes me just a little bit, continuity-wise, because in Alien Romulus, they are able to freeze the embryos and the creature itself, but apparently while it's gestating, cryo doesn't work on it. I think they should have tied this into the sabotage plot and have the saboteur be the one who unthawed the guy while the alien did its thing. Because apparently it seems they know all about its life cycle, at least Zavari does, and even already has a designated spot for the adult xenomorph. So now it's a bug hunt, but how do you catch a 9-foot tall super fast killing machine when you can't shoot it because if it bleeds it will burn a hole in the ship? Morrow's already got that one figured out. Taser guns! Over in the lab, the doctor is studying the other creatures, still contained in their jars. But it's just the tentacle eyeball and the leech tick. We still don't get to see the strange scorpion wasp spider thing or the big plant one. Anyway, these little buggers are smart though, as the leech ticks use their tiny little limbs to slip under the seal of their container, and they open their latch, and one escapes, crawling to the doctor's coffee thermos and jizzing in it. Yep, you heard me. What's funny is that the eyeball tries to warn her that it's happening, tapping rapidly on the glass, its pupil darting from her to the thermos and back again, like it was signalling don't drink that. Maybe because the doctor seems to be really nice, and even respectful when it comes to studying these creatures. That the eyeball maybe developed a kind of, I don't know, pet master kind of relationship mentality with her. That, or he was thinking if those things kill her, then I can't do that bonding thing with her. Well, while she manages to catch a little escapee with the help of the shady addict guy and seal the container, putting it back on the wall, she absent-mindedly forgets to lock the one housing the eyeball. And when she leaves, it uses its tentacles to kind of slingshot itself repeatedly against the glass, till it eventually knocks itself off the shelf, smashing the container and freeing it. You would think with such important specimens and being so far in the future, they would have made it stronger, more durable glass containers that even if it were to fall off the shelf, it wouldn't shatter to pieces. Then again, if a company can cut costs at the expenses of their employees, what's more corporate than that? Once again, the crew all gather to discuss what's happening. That there's a creature loose on the ship, both the Cap and Bronsky are dead, and Zavira is now in charge of the ship while Morrow investigates a possible saboteur. Zaviri clears the dock for obvious reasons, but the young idiot engineer starts to make waves, temporarily drawing suspicion on himself. He then almost chokes on a Hot Pocket or something, but he decides to take a drink from the doctor's thermos, gulping it all down. Oh boy, I wonder what that is going to look like when they all grow to term and hatch inside of him. At this point I had two suspects of my own. Either it was Bronsky who rigged the fuel canisters to burn and then died before he could escape because the explosion set the facehuggers loose, or it was the addict, because he really seems to have a grudge against Yutani Corporation. However, he plays the sad card by claiming he'd never do it. He's homesick and just wants to get back to Earth, so why would he trap himself in space? Over in the cargo bay, the two engineers are working hard at trying to solve some problems, when all of a sudden the young kid starts puking up blood. He then collapses and starts convulsing. Oh shit, Zervari and the doc get back to the lab and oh no, the eye is on the loose. The addict contacts them through the intercom and tells them to hurry up to Med Bay to treat whatever is happening to the young kid. Shit is hitting all the fans. Morrow interviews Teng next, and like I said, this dude is freaking creepy. I guess he's full robot, but he has a fascination with one of the crew and jacks off to her. I didn't really know they could do that, but Teng lays some riddles on Morrow to help direct him to the proper suspect. Using the security console, Morrow hacks into all the deleted files and recovers them, watching all the backlogs of any messages sent by any crew members. Looks like it was some guy named Petrovich who made a deal with Boy Cavalier to crash the ship and get him the specimens instead. For a moment I was like, wait, who the fuck is this guy? He's not the one of the people that we've been watching so far. But then Morrow gears up and heads to the cryo bay and the fucker refroze himself, or at least he did for a little while, until his timer went off and he was able to unthaw and go and hide somewhere. As Morrow investigates though, we hear the sounds of the big Zeno daddy watching him from one of the vents. Back in the med bay, we finally get an explanation of what Hermit saw on that screen and why they were performing surgery. Looks like those things multiplied inside of the kid and started drinking him from the inside out. However, when Rahim, the addict guy, tries to remove one, it lets out some kind of gas cloud, which starts choking him and the doc. Outside of the lad, Zervari, Morrow and the engineer watch, and Zervari hits the emergency decontamination button, which vents all the breathable air out of the room, killing Doc and Rahim. But not the tick leeches, fuck. Well, at least the room is sealed, right? This breaks something in Zervari, so Morrow takes command of the ship now. They split into two teams, and Zervari and the engineer, and Morrow and his little apprentice guy, as the two security officers are tackling through the ship corridors to find the big Zeno. Petrovich pops up out of the doorway and just opens fire on him, hitting the little guy in the chest and shoulder. Oh no, the eyeball is here too. Before Morrow can respond though, Petrovich shoots the other guy in the face, and so Morrow sneaks out the back, goes around and stabs him through the back with his shape-shifting arm blade thing. Very Terminator 2. We then cut back to Zervari, who is still traumatized with what she had to do, when we get an epic shot of the big chap coming down out of the ceiling vent behind her, and it actually looks cool here. A full practical suit with a stunt actor inside, which is then ruined a moment later when she bolts and it chases after her, in an unfinished looking odd CGI chase scene, reminding me of the bad effects in Alien 3. She runs down to the engineering bay, sealing the door behind her, and the engineer is here. Except, well, he isn't himself. As he turns around, it looks like the eye took him over. Morrow pops out the vent seconds after the big Zeno runs away to find a different way into the room, and sees Zervari knocked out on the ground, and strange engineer guy who is trying to talk in some weird guttural squawking. Looks like he called the big daddy back over, and then the two of them fight. I don't know what the fuck is going on. Well, he is no match for the Xenos, though it kills the Eye's host, but it launches itself at the Xeno, trying to burrow its way into its elongated head and taking over. But it doesn't manage. And then we catch up to what we saw in episode 1. Morrow sealing the door to the mother, Zervari getting eaten by the alien, and the ship crashing. But wait, there is more. Flashing forward to the current day, Morrow meets up with Lady Yutani and tells her the plan of how he's going to get the specimens back and also his plans to assassinate Cavalier. She has some strange looking bodyguards dressed in red samurai armour but carrying giant pulse rifle looking guns. Kinda reminds me of the Emperor Snoke's elite Praetorian guards for The Last Jedi. And then it cuts to black. So again, that was an interesting episode, but just didn't get me to the edge of my seat because I already knew everyone was gonna die, which again I feel like they could have kept this in the first episode. There was also several other crew still in their cryo tubes, and I know we saw a few of them get killed because of the crash, but most of these tubes may have survived. It could have been interesting if Cavalier had brought them back as well as a kind of hostage or whatever, and then just used them for experiments, all dastardly like. I'm still holding off giving any score just yet. Gonna see how the rest of the series plays out first. I want to thank you all for checking out the video. What did you think of the episode? Do you think the series should have started with this episode? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please give us a like, share and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to pop that bell icon to stay up to date on all our latest releases. I have been your host Sarah, and thank you for being here with me today. Take care and goodbye. Got Yuna's hair on me. She's shedding.